Welcome back to the Quick Save Podcast. I'm Alex.
I'm Josh.
And today we're going to be talking about Okami.
A true classic of the PS2 era.
A real classic, but almost a forgotten classic, really.
It didn't, I wouldn't say that maybe. The game has a lot of critical acclaim. It did not sell well, obviously, when it came out, for sure. But I think people recognized the greatness as time went on.
Now, let's talk a little bit about what Okami is. Okami is an action-adventure game that takes a lot of Japanese folklore and like innovative paintbrush-style graphics and puts that together and gives us just a beautiful, beautiful game that really entices you.
Looks very pretty. Very, very visually beautiful. It's made by Team Clover. What do you think? All right, 50-50 shot. A live studio or dead studio? For all the viewers at home, get your scorecards out.
Ooh, I don't know. No. Team Clover is a
defunct studio. Oh! Doesn't exist anymore. But Team Clover there used to be Team Beautiful. They made the first Beautiful Joe game. Then Team Beautiful turned into Team Clover. So they made the first two Beautiful Joes. They made Okami. They made God Hand, which is really expensive and hard to find now. Essentially, they created this game, and the way it works is you just journey through like feudal Japan, bringing beauty back to the landscape, growing plants and making everything look pretty again, and fighting off monsters like imps and devils. There's like these creatures you're fighting off with your dog powers.
Now, you play as Amaterasu, the sun god.
And you're a dog.
Yeah, you are the dog.
You are a dog, yes.
Amaterasu is called the mother of all. Basically, we know that it is a her, and they, for whatever reason, really try to emphasize that a lot, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, you talk to a lot of like other like minor gods, and they're like bowing down and stuff. They're like, oh,
great mother.
Yeah, they're like, you
birthed everything in this world. Thank you.
And you're like, dude,
I'm a freaking dog right now.
Woof woof.
Mm-hmm, exactly correct.
The main game is basically solving puzzles and fighting through enemies and exploring the maps. So that's kind of the main get-to-go things to do. Mm-hmm. The fun things are helping the villagers, or the NPCs in general, not just the villagers.
Yeah, so your loops are going to be doing quests, side quests, helping villagers. Maybe they misplaced something. And then they're like, man, I wish some legendary sun deity in the body of a wolf would help me with my menial problems. And you're like, yeah, bro, I got you covered. And so you're helping them out all the time. But then, yeah, beyond that, you're going to be, if you're not exploring and solving puzzles and quests, then you're going to be doing hack and slash combat.
One of my favorite things for the quest that we did was we helped an old lady in the village where we start off. And she's like,
oh, I lost my pole.
For hanging my clothes.
For hanging laundry. So there's this paintbrush power, we'll get to that in a bit. But you just draw a line, and then it just makes the laundry pole. And she's like,
oh, cool, my laundry pole's back.
And then she's like,
oh, but what a dreary day, my laundry will take forever.
So then you draw the sun in the sky, and then you make the sun to dry the laundry. Okay, the sun dries the laundry. Then she's like,
awesome, I'm going to make food tonight. Come back at nighttime, and I'll give you food.
And then there you go. It's just that simple.
So let's talk a little bit about that paintbrush feature that we have.
It's called the Celestial Brush.
To access Celestial Brush, you press down R1 on the controller.
We played on PS2, just for reference. It came out on PS2 and GameCube originally, and then was remade on a bunch of systems.
Not
later.
GameCube.
No.
PS2 original.
I thought it was on GameCube. Sorry, I'm thinking Beautiful Joe was on GameCube.
Beautiful Joe was
GameCube.
GameCube.
Okami is just PS2.
Yep, and then it was later released for the first time on Wii, then PS4, Xbox One.
Yep.
But you press R1 down, you get to this grayed out screen, and you have like this paintbrush effect.
Like a cursor.
Cursor, basically, where you can press down A and then use your controls to like move it around and make shapes and stuff.
Yeah, so you hit square to draw, and then you're going to get powers throughout the game where drawing certain shapes will give you powers, will let you do stuff in this brush menu.
For example, drawing a horizontal line will do essentially a cut effect.
Yep.
And that's very useful in early combat.
Yep, where we saw later, there's like drawing the sun in the sky. You just point at the sky and draw a circle to make the sun, which you need for some puzzles. Or you can draw a circle with a line through it to make like a bomb that explodes, and plenty of other crazy powers as you go along. The Celestial Brush is kind of what sets this apart and makes it such a unique game, because that is a very unique thing to Okami, is you are using this paintbrush screen a lot. It is most of the gameplay. Even in combat, you can use these attacks to defeat enemies or find their weaknesses.
Cutscenes where you have to interact with the cutscene and draw, the blooming effect to have flowers bloom.
Yes, this guy's going to do like a wind dance or a tree dance, and you have to grow the flowers when he does the specific thing. They're like quick time events almost, where you're helping villagers. The Celestial Brush is a core gameplay mechanic used in pretty much every aspect of the game.
I know when I originally played the game, I was very concerned about how well you would be able to draw. And that was a very big concern for me because, let's be honest, if anyone's ever played, old stuff like Mario Paint and stuff, drawing is never really correlated well into games.
Especially with, a joystick or, an analog stick where, it's very iffy if this is going to control well or not.
Surprisingly, though, it was very smooth.
It was pretty fluid, yeah. It did not feel outside the realm of possibility to do it, draw shapes and whatever you needed pretty quick.
And, after a while, the shapes you got used to drawing were pretty fast. You were able to do them real fast.
You could point at something, draw a straight line, cut it, move on to the next thing, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the graphics. They are astoundingly beautiful, first off.
Yeah, so it's the whole game is cel-shaded, which if you don't know what that is, it's kind of, think of comic book style. The graphics, I wouldn't say blurry, but they're not super high detail, and everything has a thick black outline around it. So it kind of pops out. It's got that kind of pop art aesthetic almost. Borderlands uses this.
Yeah, I was going to say Borderlands would be a very close comparison.
The other Beautiful Joes are both cel-shaded as well. There are tons of examples out there of cel-shaded games. But it's another thing that helps it stand out visually.
It looks really good.
The music is also amazing.
Man, it's so good. We were listening to the credit song earlier, and this lady's just freaking singing her heart out, man. Ties in, it sounds kind of like traditional Japanese folk music.
Yeah. The thing that I really liked as well was the fact that when you paired the music just in the background with the scenery in the game, especially during the daytimes once you've made everything bloom.
It's amazing looking.
Half the game is literally you just kind of standing back after you've done, other objectives and going,
wow, it looks great.
Yeah,
I just want to kind of walk around.
And even the art, the way the art looks it kind of looks like traditional Japanese paintings and stuff like that from the time of feudal Japan or ancient Japan, stuff like that. It really does a great sense of evoking just kind of ancient and modern Japanese culture. Damn beautiful game. It looks so good.
The dialogue is also very humorous and very inappropriate at times.
Yeah, some of the first dialogue is this bug painter dude who's joining you on your journey, and he's talking about he was in the robe of this hot spirit lady, and he's like,
I'd like to chill in that robe some more, if you get what I'm saying.
And I'm like, bro, who is this? We had to double check it, and you were like, it's rated T for teen. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If this was rated E10, I'd be like, that does not fly. Rated T for teen, okay, we can make those jokes, and that flies.
The little bug guy is essentially this character that goes along with you. Kind of think of Navi from Ocarina of Time.
Well, that's how they get around. The dog, Amaterasu, does not speak. The dog does not speak. There are no dialogue lines for the dog. She does not talk. So how they get around that, having a completely silent protagonist, is to have this little creature accompany you and talk about,
here's where we need to go next, and this is our mission, and this is what we should do. So
the fact that she doesn't speak doesn't mean that she doesn't have any emotional character to herself. The dog is super sarcastic.
She has some of the funniest movement in the whole game. There was a scene where the spirit, the hot lady spirit, was talking to us early in the game. There's a point where the dog just goes and lays down and just is clearly not listening to what it's literally just this dialogue of, you have to save the world from this evil beast or else darkness, and the dog's just laying down in the background, doesn't care.
Literally just I don't have time for this. Please just keep talking, whatever. I'm going to take a nap. Tons of sarcasm. There are moments where if something happens that you as the player are man, what the heck? Usually Amaterasu has the same thing of what?
Yeah, does the classic dog thing, turns their head to the side I don't understand what that means. Yeah, it is really funny. So this came out in 2006. Yeah, I don't know, the sarcastic writing, it holds up. Some of that stuff doesn't age well. I thought it was really good. Funny when it needed to be and serious when it needed to be.
There's some things that shouldn't be funny, but we both kind of found as hilarious as like when you get new powers for the Celestial Brush, you talk to these lesser gods that you reawaken from stars in the sky. You know, they're like, oh, great mother, you've birthed us all, blah, 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 blah. But the whole time, Amaterasu is just sitting there like, here's this amazing power that...
Yeah, let me bestow this upon you. And Amaterasu's like, yep, mm-hmm. Yeah, keep going, yep, sure, oh yeah.
And then, like, they're ending, and you're just like, are we done? All right,
like,
bye.
See ya. Turns around and leaves. Yep. There's stuff, if you were like, what is this game about? We didn't get there. We only played for a little bit this time, but I think there's a way later in the game, you can get like a poop weapon. The dog poops. She poops and it like blows up or something, and it's like, that's it.
Talking about our playtime, we barely scratched the surface.
Okay, we played for 3 hours on average. Looks like just beating the story takes you about 30, so I mean, we didn't even touch 10% of the game, barely. And if you want to like fully complete everything, I mean, you're looking somewhere in the realm of like 50 to 70 hours. Yeah. Like, it doesn't feel like it, especially you're like, well, this is a game from maybe like a smaller studio. I mean, Clover is affiliated with Capcom, but even just holding Okami, you're like, this doesn't seem like it would be a very long game. It is, absolutely. I mean, we're talking 30 hours just for like the main story is pretty long. But man, yeah, even in what we played, I feel like we unlocked a ton, found a ton, did a bunch of quests. I feel like we did a bunch in 3 hours.
The game does make a really good feeling for the player of like, you are continuously moving.
Pace felt great. Yeah, absolutely.
You're unlocking this, you're helping them do that. That gives you like these better food items. Oh, you need those food items to activate certain dialogue or to start a mission. So I mean, there's like so much that's happening that the whole time you're just kind of like, oh, I'm still in the beginning? It's crazy.
So let's talk a little bit about some other gameplay aspects here. I want to talk about combat a little bit and what that's like. So combat is essentially you're going to run into enemies, and they kind of put you in a little zone, and you're locked into this little combat zone, and they're going to spawn enemies. Sometimes it's waves of enemies. And then it's kind of like traditional hack and slash almost. You start with 2 attack buttons. So I think square and X were attack. Like I said, within combat, you can use your Celestial Brush. So sometimes you'll hit an enemy and they get knocked down and grayed out. And then when they're grayed out, you use the brush to do a slice on them and they die. I don't think we did this, but every enemy is weak to a certain brush attack. So if you hit them with a certain brush attack, they drop Demon Fangs, which is like a currency that is used for like shops and upgrades later in the game.
I did one where we did receive a Demon Fang, but there was just so much going on, and I'm not sure exactly what happened. There's another time, a little bit later in the game, you get introduced to like this drum demon, and they burrow underground. But
and so
if you're behind them when they pop back up, they don't know where you are. You can hit them with a slash attack, instantly just...
And there's like a bestiary in the game, so when you defeat enemies, they kind of give you like little tips and tricks of like, hey, here's how you should beat them, or here's what you could do to fight them. So that was nice. It was, having that available to you was pretty nice. But yeah, it is kind of, I'm not going to say typical hack and slash. We didn't even get this far. There are multiple weapons in the games. There's like types of weapons. So there's swords. There was, I think you used the shield on the back of Amaterasu.
There's like a whip one.
There's a rosary, and rosary's like a whip kind of, which is a lot of people's favorites. But yeah, there were some other weirdo little options that we'll get into. There was like, so when you start up the game, it opens the options menu. You could switch between standard or LCD TV options for graphics, which was really interesting.
Yeah, it's something that you wouldn't expect for a game made in 2006. Like, it's such an odd thing to introduce.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what kind of TV do you have?
Are you rich, kid? Yeah, here you go.
Exactly. We'll optimize that for you. And then the same thing with the audio options. So you could do mono, stereo, and then Dolby Pro Logic 2. Just straight up, like, called out by name. If you've got the Pro Logic 2, we've optimized it for the Dolby Pro Logic 2.
Now, when we play these on a 55-inch LED TV, and we also run it through a receiver, which is big stereo unit essentially. And so we're like, let's kind of see if this makes any sort of difference, since we have the the availability to do it.
Yeah, we always mess around with the settings to see, does it sound different? Does it look better if we change this, change that?
We noticed with the LCD option, it does make things a bit brighter, and it did look a little better that way going through a newer TV. With the stereo options, I didn't notice a whole ton of difference, but like there was a slight bit there.
Yep.
You know, a little bit more bassy, maybe a little bit more higher end on the treble spectrum.
You know,
if
maybe
you're really deep into that type of thing when you play your
here's the
games.
thing, man. You know, we didn't notice much, but if you're sitting at home, you got a Dolby Pro Logic 2. I bet it's a world of difference. Let's get into the plot about this game a little bit here, huh? So what is Okami about? Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing just because we really like this game, kind of want you to go out and play it. If you're listening to this, you're like, I've never heard of this game. Man, I want to play it. This sounds awesome. I'm not going to spoil the whole story for you. We're going to give you kind of a taste.
Fun bit was like, this is once again another childhood game for me, and I grew up playing it, and I just had so many memories of like, oh my gosh, Okami. We played my original copy that I've had since I was a kid, since 2006, which is crazy.
Yeah, I never played Okami. It's one of those games I had a PS2. I always wanted to play Okami. I remember it came out and made kind of big waves. I know it won IGN's Game of the Year award in 2006. Something I've always wanted to play, but I just never got around to it. And now that we played it, I was blown away.
Yeah, no, I remember I showed it to you, and I'm like, we gotta play this. I love this game. You're like, I want to play it, but I don't know. And I was like, no, you don't understand. We have to play this game.
Okay, so you start the game. The plot opens with like a kind of like a text, dialogue.
Yeah, it's kind of this weird like text / movie that you watch.
They kind of give you art. There's like, it's like a cutscene, but it's mainly just dialogue and like some artistic representation of what's happening. So essentially, it opens with a fable about this world-eating demon, ultimate evil demon, Orochi, and
who essentially is like a Hydra. It has 8 heads.
He's got 8 heads. Yeah. So the story starts with Orochi, who's this big world-ending demon. He's got like 8 heads, kind of like a Hydra. So he's this big kind of lizard dragon-esque creature. And so this demon is here. He is going to destroy the world. But then the legendary swordsman... so it's like this village. Every year they sacrifice a girl to appease Orochi. So one year this girl... was it...
Naga.
Naga was the girl?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Naga was the girl.
It was Naga, or maybe it was Nami. Maybe I'm just thinking about One Piece. But so anyways, girl gets chosen to be sacrificed. This guy Nagi's like a legendary swordsman who's the villager in the town. He loves the girl. So he goes in place of the girl to fight Orochi and kill Orochi. And he has the sword. I don't remember what the sword's called. It's got a moon on it. It's a whole thing. So then he's fighting, and it's like, no way this guy's going to get murdered by Orochi. And then Shiranui, who's this wolf who's been chilling outside of the town trying to protect it, shows up to help fight Orochi. So Shiranui turns it into nighttime, making the sword super powerful. They kill Orochi. Orochi sealed away with the sword. Bingo bongo. But then the freaking dog dies.
The dog dies!
Right away. They were like, here's this cool dog. And you're like, dude, that's me. I'm going to be the cool dog. They're like, no, not this cool dog. That one freaking died immediately.
Oh, the dog dies.
So the dog dies. The dog sacrificed itself to save the village with Nagi's help. And then, now the story really begins. This is where stuff gets hot and heavy.
It begins 100 years after that day.
100 years after that day.
We see, like, this shadowy figure go into the cave.
He goes into the moon cave where the sword is.
He's, like, dissing Nagi. He's like, yeah, this dude ain't got nothing. The sword's crappy.
Yeah, so he pulls the sword out. Spoiler alert, brings Orochi back to life. We hate that. And so, well, who's going to stop Orochi's freaking blasting darkness all over? It literally says Nippon, so it's literally just like feudal Japan. So what are they going to do? Well, Shiranui is brought back to life. There's a statue of Shiranui that comes to life. Just kidding. It's not Shiranui. It's freaking Amaterasu.
The sun god.
The sun god, just straight up. And so, yeah, you go through the game. You're going to fight Orochi and bring peace to the land. That's kind of your cliffhanger there of what Okami is looking like. But, yeah, he's making demons and devils and stuff you got to fight and defeat.
Yeah, and so, like, Katsuya is the lesser god that is reviving Shiranui. But instead, we get Amaterasu, the sun god,
Yep.
and then that's when we meet our little bug friend. So, we came full circle there.
Exactly. You meet the little bug friend who is, as we've established, a pervert.
Oh, a pervert is he.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Okami and the development of this game. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I'm going to take you on a journey here, okay? So let's talk about Clover Studio. Rest in peace.
Let's, Clover Studio, rest in peace, as you say. But, they didn't do too bad. They kind of shifted into something else.
Let's start in the beginning. Okay, so so like I had mentioned, Clover was a Capcom studio. So a lot of these people who essentially founded Clover Studios worked on some of Capcom's games of the past. A lot of these people worked on Resident Evil 4 and the original Devil May Cry. So, we're talking super early gaming, like, big hitters. A lot of these guys formed a team. So, it's kind of like an all-star team.
It's funny thinking about going from, Resident Evil and Devil May Cry to Okami.
A game where you're a dog who fights devils, yes. So, they work on Resident Evil 4, Devil May Cry series. They become this team, Team Beautiful. Makes the first Beautiful Joe. Okay, move on to Beautiful Joe 2. They're like, okay, what if you weren't just Team Beautiful? What if you had Capcom kind of separated them from themselves. Kind of saying like, hey, you can make creative stuff on your own. You don't just have to make sequels, which was and after Clover's dissolution, that was kind of Konami's whole bit, was like, we don't want to risk original games. We want to focus on sequels 70% of the time, sometimes up to 100% of the time. This is back before that. Capcom's like, hey, we're going to separate you. You guys can have some independence. Make the games you want to see in the world, right? And they did. Like I said, they made God Hand, which is kind of a cult classic game at this point. And same with Okami. Like I said, it was not well received when it originally came out. That's kind of what you get with taking risks. I feel like in games, you're like, everybody's like, Call of Duty. You're like, yeah, Call of Duty. And it's like, okay, this is a game where you're a dog who fights bad guys. And you're like, maybe I'm going to pass on the game where I'm a dog that fights bad guys. But Okami, same with God Hand, at this point is very well received. I feel like it is kind of established its cult classic territory at this point.
It's kind of the beautiful thing about back then, where we got like some of these crazy, crazy idea games that were made that at the time definitely weren't as appreciated as much as they are now.
Yep.
But like, man, I don't think we're gonna get a period of gaming that is like that, where it's just go buck wild, get the juices flowing.
Here's
give
the
me
thing.
something interesting.
I was literally thinking about this today. We have that still, just not in the AAA game space. Indie games all the time are pushing the boundaries of what a game can be and what is, what is out there for sure. But yeah, we won't get it. I always think of Katamari, one of my favorite series of all time. You roll a ball around and pick things up. That's the game. That's the whole game. You roll a ball around and pick things up.
My favorite thing is they took that concept and made sequels.
Yeah, it's on PS2, PS3, Xbox 360. It's on your PSP. It's on your Vita. I think they made a 3DS title. Maybe I'm making that up. There was one on your phone. There was a freaking browser game, man. Katamari had 900. They re-released it. They re-rolled or whatever. It was on PS4 and Switch. The cult classic weirdo games like that find that niche, and that's what happened with Okami. We had the HD remaster that's on PS4, Xbox One, Switch. I think you can play it on PS5 as well. There are games like this that really do stand the test of time and get that remaster.
Yeah, I mean, like, talking about just the remasters alone, I mean, it seems like the moment the Wii version hit, they're like, put it on everything.
Yeah.
Now, in Japan, we didn't get these, but in Japan, they had it on PS3 and the Switch. We got the Switch download for US.
Yeah, it's digital only on US, but in Japan, they have a physical Switch card.
Yeah, and then there's like 3 different versions for each system. I mean, like, this thing was just over and over and over. They were like, oh, we're going to add this, we're going to add that, we're going to do this.
Some quality of life stuff, bug fixes, stuff like that.
It's crazy.
Okay, so Clover Studio, recap. Worked on Resident Evil 4, worked on Devil May Cry, made the Beautiful Joe games, made Okami. That's where we're at. Then they make God Hand. Okami and God Hand both not received well at release. Like I said, God Hand has that cult classic status, but it truly is a cult classic just because it only exists on PS2, right?
Yep.
So you cannot, there's no remaster of God Hand where we're, playing HD God Hand or something like that. So these were not received well, so Capcom rescinds their previous independence and says, we want you to come back to the main Capcom team. You guys can make sequels like everybody else. That's what we're going to put Kojima in the basement. Team Clover, we're going to put him in the basement, start cranking out sequels. Team Clover does not like that. So they dissolve and they are like, they part ways. No more Clover Studio. Sadness
Sad
for
day.
Then they form a new company. I've heard this little more middle part citation needed. I'm not going to remember all the exact information here. They form a new company, kind of a small company. I don't really think they worked on a ton. Then that small company combines with another small company to form, maybe you heard of this one, a small little company called Platinum Games. Bayonetta 1, Bayonetta 2, Bayonetta 3, Transformers, Devastation, Wonderful 101, freaking 900 other games, but a ton of more modern, very classic games.
I mean, talk about going from, we're a small company that, Capcom helped make, to, hey guys, we're making everything.
Well, that's when Wonderful 101, the trailer. So I had a Wii U around that time when that came out. I really wanted Wonderful 101 because it looked like Beautiful Joe. Spoiler alert, literally made by the people who made Beautiful Joe. That's why it looks like Beautiful Joe. And the gameplay is totally different, but the character designs, I was like, that's just freaking Beautiful Joe. So they go on to form Platinum Games. They make all this stuff. And then it doesn't stop there. The saga continues. There's one gentleman, I don't remember if I wrote his name. Yeah, so one of the founders, I don't remember the name. So one of the founders of like the main dude who founded Clover left. So he was at Clover, left Clover, became Platinum Games. He left Platinum Games in like 2017, and he joined ZeniMax to start a new studio called Tango. Tango went on to make Evil Within 1 and 2 and Ghostwire Tokyo, which just came out a few weeks ago. Just like Team Clover dipped their hand in the beginning of classics and modern classics and, freaking Ghostwire Tokyo.
It's
another
so crazy.
Another game with a super, out there concept, right? It's nuts how many pies these guys have had their fingers in. It's insane how much this one studio has, made a ton of, insanely well-received games.
Yeah, it's like a true ripple effect. They started with that Clover drop, and then it just rippled into all these other things.
They just had continued to have extremely successful careers, and still do. Platinum Games is still around. Like Bayonetta 3 is eventually coming out, right?
Yeah, not only are they still around, but people are like, Platinum Games is making a game. Like it's a well-known name.
There's this whole fan base around it, right? And yeah, like I said, Ghostwire Tokyo literally just came out a couple months ago. I remember. Do you know anything about that game?
I literally know nothing.
It's like this spooky event happens in Japan. It's kind of like folklore based, but it's more about spooky ghosts and stuff. And so you have to stop these evil spirits and stuff in Japan. So it's literally just a bunch of Japanese yokai folklore spirits, and it seems scary. But there was I always think of this all the time when I see that. I really want it, but I haven't gotten it yet. The director of the game, she went on stage that one time. She was like, "It's spooky," and everybody was like, "Yeah, it's spooky." But yeah, Clover Studios, crazy story, top to bottom. Why don't you talk about our friends SoftDeck and ADX?
So essentially, process the video and audio of the game. So those are the two main things that
SoftDeck
do that.
Yeah, SoftDeck processes the video, and it runs the ADX audio files. So ADX makes the audio files. SoftDeck combines the audio and the video.
And this was widely used on one of my favorite consoles, Sega Dreamcast.
Mm-hmm. It was used on other systems too. I mean, the PS2, Xbox, GameCube. But for those consoles, it was pretty much only used for some Sonic games. Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic Heroes, Sonic Adventure, I believe, used it. But it was just kind of a audio and video encoder that was used for a lot of Sega stuff. But yeah, it's used here too. And I don't know, it's kind of nostalgic for me. I played a ton of Sonic Heroes, so every time I see those two logos pop up, I'm like, oh man, they did a bunch of Sega stuff.
Once again, crazy ripple effect. Take sign from 06 and we're seeing it still today.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about price.
Mm-hmm.
PS2 Black Label, the go-to label
you're
color.
getting the OG number one shelf copy.
If you want loose, it's going to be $11.99. If you want a complete copy, though, you're looking at like $20.
That's the most expensive out of our list. We're going to read here. $20 is the highest to buy a copy of Okami. Tell me about the PS2 Red Greatest Hits label.
Greatest Hits, surprisingly, the loose one is $13 there.
The loose one's more expensive than the black label, which is kind of funny.
But the complete one is, if you're looking to get the PS2 version a little bit more manageable, about $5 off, $16.
That's going to be kind of a normal thing in my opinion. The Greatest Hits is going to be less desirable than the black label because people want the original copies, right?
Going on from there, though, we hit the Wii version, which is the first re-release. Loose copy is about $7. A complete one is about $9. So if you're going to get the Wii one, just get the complete one.
Now, here's the thing about the Wii one. I'm not going to dunk on it super hard, but I've heard that the motion controls people kind of don't like. I mean, the motion controls, I think, just in general on the Wii can be, at best, finicky and hard to control. So if you want the definitive paintbrush control, I would maybe stray away from the Wii copy. Because as we mentioned, the PS2, the paintbrush stuff is just fine. Probably going to be kind of hard to control with the Wii remote, unless you have like maybe Wii Motion to help the tracking. But I just know that's why that one's so much cheaper.
Fun fact though about the Wii copy, on the front cover art, if you look real close at a certain section of it, you can see the IGN logo.
Yep, and it's on every Wii copy.
Yeah, it's on every single Wii copy because when they were making the cover art, they literally just went to IGN, pulled the image, and plastered it on.
Yeah, I don't know if somebody lost the original file for the cover art or something. Yeah, but like they just took the IGN cover art for the game and uploaded that. So every Wii copy, if you know where to look, has a little IGN logo on it, which is so good.
Looking at the new consoles now, the PS4.
The HD remaster.
HD remasters. Loose copy is $16. So, I mean, it's
held its value. Sure.
And the complete one is $17. Once again, if you're going to get the copy, just get the complete one.
Yep.
Because you might as well have everything for $1 more.
Yeah, just have an original liner and stuff. Yep.
And then the Xbox One copies, which I thought this was interesting, but like I kind of understand. Loose copies $8 with the complete being $11, all via price charting.
PlayStation bros represent PlayStation titles. We keep that value high. You're playing a PlayStation game on an Xbox, you're a traitor. It's worth less.
And then, like I said, we did get the digital for the Switch, but there is physical carts available, which I believe do have English subtitles.
Yeah, I was doing some research on that. You can buy the Japanese cart, and you can get English subtitles. So you could play it in English if you really wanted a Japanese copy of Okami HD Remaster. And then there was a physical release on PS3 in Japan. We did not get that here.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be, again, kind of a port to that system. It's not going to be the HD Remaster. But
overall, let's just get to the bare bones of it, is the fact that Okami is 100% inspired by Zelda. It feels like a Zelda game in certain aspects.
It looks like a Zelda game.
It looks like one.
The first thing that we booted up this game, we were like, this reminds me of Ocarina. And I'm like, that's funny. This reminds me of Wind Waker. Literally both, we were like, this reminds us of two different Zelda games.
The director, Hideki Kamiya, has confirmed this himself, admitting that he was a huge fan of the Zelda series, and it definitely influenced his game design.
Here's the thing. No offense to him, no offense to Okami. What hasn't Zelda influenced? There's so much. If you know where to look, Zelda has influenced just like so much about video games, period.
The one thing I kept running across when we were doing some research is the fact that people really just point that out as like the negative of this.
Yeah, they're like, it's a clone of Zelda. I'm like, bro, did you play the game?
Like, it definitely takes inspiration, but It's not like you just reskinned a Zelda game.
Absolutely. I'm not watching this dog roll around going,
Yep.
The dog don't say nothing, man. And there's no green tunics in sight.
Not even a blue one, not even a red one.
No tunics.
No metal boots.
No metal boots. No tunics allowed. No Dark World, no Ganondorf,
No moon with a face.
no Moon with a Face. Okay, the one negative we can say in this aspect, there is a wolf. In Twilight Princess, Link became a wolf. But who knows? Maybe that was a reference to Okami. Boom!
Oh!
Boom! Think about that.
You've been served.
Yeah, it all comes full circle. Okami inspired by Zelda. Zelda inspired by Okami.
Overall, though, me and Josh both agree that it's not a clone. It definitely is
It's not a
inspired,
clone. It's inspired.
but not a clone.
Has elements, right? Similar elements. Also, are you really going to complain about a Zelda game on PS2?
I know, right? Like,
Dude, we should be happy we got pretty much a Zelda game on PS2.
every Zelda game I've ever played, I've loved, and like the fact that this plays like a Zelda game just made it so much easier to like jump in and really know what I was doing.
Yes. Let's move on to the new segment. It's Josh's Speed Zone. We're going to talk about speed runs and what speed runs of this game look like. But let's start at the beginning. What's the speed zone? We're going to talk about speed runs and what they are first. What's speed run? Speed run is where one single run of a game where someone is attempting to beat it as fast as possible. It's like you're racing yourself to be good at video games.
Now, most speed runs are done with the any percent complete, which just means you are getting from the beginning of the game to the end of the game.
Yeah, percentage.
Doesn't matter what you do in between.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you collect. You're not going for full completion. You're just trying to beat as fast as possible. That's just one of many categories. Usually categories are separate. It depends on the game. Because each game, depending on how it plays, is going to have separate categories. Sometimes they do an all bosses run. Sometimes there is just a beat the game run. Sometimes there's... I know in Mario Odyssey, I've seen a bunch of like super weird runs where it's like swimsuit percent, which is like you're just racing to get Mario to a certain world where he wears a swimsuit. So
And,
there's
like,
a bunch of super weird categories when you start looking into stuff like that.
We'll just definitely bring up like the one that's the most popular for the game when we talk about
Usually,
these.
when we're in the speed zone, we'll just talk about the most popular categories and what some times look like for that. But so you're like, I want to get involved in speedrunning. How do I do that? So there's a website called speedrun.com that's going to be kind of your best friend for stuff like this. Essentially, you need to record a run of the game, so either using like a capture card, playing on an old system, or playing like streaming or recording it on a computer. And then you upload them, usually to YouTube or whatever, and then the YouTube video you would upload to speedrun.com, and they have to verify it and make sure that you weren't cheating, nothing seems suspicious, and then you would get posted on a leaderboard. So that's the whole bit. Speedrun.com, kind of a trusted source. There's plenty of huge speedrunning events. Out here, I know we have, kind of out where we live, there's Midwest Speed Fest, which I think is a very fun name. Obviously, AGDQ and SGDQ every year raise millions of dollars for charity. Speedrunning has exploded in popularity, I would say, probably over the past, like, 10-ish years.
You know, I want to shout out, if you're really trying to just see if speedrunning's your thing or if you're interested in it, there's a great YouTube channel on the platform called Summoning Salt. Dude does amazing work. We'll put his link below. I pretty much have watched all his videos at this point. I love watching these crazy runs that people have done.
And that's the other nice thing too. I mean, there's tons of resources available for stuff like this. Even on the website, if you go to speedrun.com and type in a game, you can click, there's going to be a little tab that says guides, and they just straight up give you guides on how to run the game and major glitches to go faster and some stuff. I will say this, 9 times out of 10 there's a Discord as well. So if you do a little digging about speedruns and stuff, if there's a game you're really interested in speedrunning, there will be a Discord where there are, you can join a community of like-minded people who are trying to beat this game as fast as possible and race each other in this competitive kind of aspect of the game.
So let's talk a little bit about Okami and the 3 major categories for speedrunning.
Yes, please. I'd love to. Why don't you start with the first one?
New game any percent. So it's beating the game with the bare minimum from a fresh save after you beat the original.
So like you mentioned, just start the game, go as fast as possible, beat the game. Then there's going to be New Game Plus any percent. So when you beat the game, there's a New Game Plus where you keep all your weapons and stuff like that. So New Game Plus any percent. So you're just beating the game on New Game Plus, giving you like a huge head start with like some of the best weapons in the game and having a huge advantage based on starting fresh. So, and then why don't you read me out the last one?
Let's see here. It's New Game and New Game Plus all brushes. It's less popular than the other two. Starting a fresh file or New Game Plus and then getting every celestial brush power.
So this category is not about beating the game, it's just about getting all of the celestial brush powers. So the fastest run out of any of these categories is in New Game Plus, any percent times ranging. So the fastest time was just an hour and 12 minutes up to about 2 hours, about 2.5 hours, like 2 hours, 20 minutes. So that's kind of the majority of those times range in there. There's some that are a little longer for sure, but that's where most of those times are going to fall. And then, so new game, any percent runs, so not the new game plus. The new game, any percent runs start at an hour and 52 minutes and go to just about over 4+ hours. So you can see, obviously, having that new game plus is a huge advantage. You save like 40 minutes just by being a new game plus.
And then with the all brushes one, it starts at just over 3 hours on a new game, and then just over 2 hours for New Game Plus.
So same thing. If you're playing New Game Plus for all brushes, you're saving about an hour just by being on New Game Plus.
Which I also want to point out, beating this game in 2 hours sounds so crazy.
We talked about, I know there's a bunch of glitches they abuse and stuff like that with like cutscene skips and like their ways to like buffer the game with like weird inputs. I didn't look into every single glitch. I was potentially going to make a list. But there's a bunch of crazy stuff they do. I'd recommend watching some speedruns, just like an hour or two long. Very interesting to see what they do. Well, let's talk about the differences between the games and how that's going to affect your runs. Because, we listed a bunch of, should I be playing it on PS2? Should I be playing it on PS4, Xbox One, Switch? What is the best kind of console for that? There are benefits to both. So if you're playing like the OG versions, we're talking PS2, PS3, and Wii, that version is better for the New Game Plus runs because you can skip cutscenes on New Game Plus as long as you saw it in your first playthrough. So you would play the game casually or whatever, making sure you hit every major cutscene. So that when you hit New Game Plus, you can just skip the cutscenes instantly. And then in the original version, a ton of those skips and glitches are available. So that's going to, get you those faster runs by being able to do these skips. Now let's talk about the HD remasters. We're talking PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. It is on Steam as well, so you can buy it on PC. The HD remaster is better for New Game, just because you can skip cutscenes from the get-go. But almost all of the glitches that are used in the runs are patched. So that's why you're seeing those new game runs take longer, because you're not able to do these glitches that help speed up some areas. So yeah, if you want to get started, honestly, there is like a beginner category. It's not tracked on speedrun.com, but it is kind of a casual thing. There's going to be a link down below about how to do like a beginner run of Okami. But yeah, in that beginner guide, there's information about the Discord if you want to join the Okami speedrunning Discord, and there's a ton of information available about how to get started speedrunning Okami. But if you have interest in speedrunning, please check it out. It is any game you could think of probably has a decent speedrunning community.
And literally, that means any game. There's literally an iCarly on the Wii speedrun.
I've seen
pick a game and
I've
go
seen
for
the
it.
Superman 64 speedruns. I've seen the Urban Yeti speedruns. I've seen it all. Good games, bad games, games you never heard of. There are speedrun communities out there for it.
I mean, I think the longer you as a person are in gaming, like I know for me and you, it's definitely something that we both are kind of like, man, I think I might want to try that at some point.
It'd be super fun. I used to do races with my buddy in Oracle of Ages and Oracle Seasons. We used to do races emulated. Don't tell Nintendo. But yeah, that's the end of the speed zone. This is because we're coming to the end of this speed zone. So
let's talk just a little bit of our personal thoughts here.
You want mine? You want mine first?
You know what? Yeah.
Game sucks. I hate it. I wish I could undo me playing this.
That's me hitting you.
Good Foley work there. No, just kidding. April Fools. No, I think it's no surprise that this got remastered and put on the Wii, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, Steam. I really don't find that surprising. Even just in 3 hours playing this, I was smitten. I was absolutely enchanted. And what I really liked, you're in these like kind of like, they're not huge zones, but there was still just so much to do. There's like dead trees.
There's so much to look at.
There are dead trees, and you unlock the ability to like grow stuff. It's called bloom. Then you can grow the trees. If you grow all the trees, that unlocks a secret, and then you get the secret. Okay, now you got to collect all the secrets. So just like every area had so much to do, and it was just teeming with life. You never ran out of things to do in an area.
It was a lot of fun watching you play this game for the first time and just seeing like you light up with like, oh my god, this is so cool.
See, it reminds me in some ways. I've never played this either. People are gonna kill me over this. I've never played Banjo-Kazooie, but it seems like exactly the game I would want to play, where it's like, hey, welcome to this world. There's freaking 900 things. Go pick every single one up. And I'm like, that sounds exactly like the game I want to play, is where I walk into a level, just pick up the 900 things, and then I'm done. That sounds amazing. And that's what this kind of reminded me. You go into an area, it's like, you got to grow all the trees. You got to beat all the enemies. You got to defeat all the devil gates. You got to get all the secret hidden beats to get the super weapon at the end. I'm like, this sounds like the freaking dream, man. Yeah, I'm living my best life.
Interesting because it's like almost everything you do leads into another thing to do.
Yep.
And it's like this just continuously branching thing.
Yep.
You know, a big thing for me was like, I talked about this already a little bit, but like we as gamers don't get to see risk taking much anymore in games.
Mm.
And Okami is like just the game that shows that taking risks is worth it. Like, the game's so beautiful in its art, the story, the ambitious gameplay that it really gave us. It's something that, to this day, people still look back on with nostalgia and love.
It's very funny you mentioned that very creative game. Do you know what Clover stands for? I'm not kidding. This stands for the Clover Studio. Clover
I didn't
Studios.
know it stood for something.
Yeah, Clover Studios. It's abbreviation for, I think it was Creative Lover. So Clover.
Yeah, that's
like
cool.
Like C Lover, Clover, Creative Lover. So it's literally in the name about this studio that's making these creative titles, right? So, but yeah, I will mention I did order it. We played it for 3 hours. Immediately, I went to my job and saw if we could get a copy in of Okami. Absolutely, I ordered one straight away. So I do have a copy. I'm playing Lego Star Wars right now. Beyond that, it will be Okami time. So I'm excited. PS2 was my favorite era, really, of games. Kind of grew up with that, so I'm very much looking forward to stepping back into the world of Okami.
I know that when we pick games, it's hard, I think, for both of us not to just continuously pick PS2 titles.
I would. It's tough because it's like, I'm like, but the PS2 is such a good console, right? Absolutely.
So I read a lot of online reviews, and, once again, they just talk about how much it's a Zelda clone, and I can't sum up more than the fact that it's not. I get where people get really grumpy about that, but
there wasn't even a train in this one, man.
Yeah, wasn't even a train.
If he was on a train though, if she was on a train the whole time, I'd be like, yeah, this is exactly like Zelda.
The big thing for me is that like you get this traditional storytelling and these adventurous choices that you get to do because when we were playing through, it's like, oh hey, go through this map, go to the top, let's go see this. And we're like, nah, let's go back to the village. We got so much more to do there. And it's like, are you sure you want to go back? And it's like, yes. Well, you go back and you do all this stuff and you get, these, the food that we were waiting for and all these extra little goodies. And it's like, oh, now that I have this, I feel even more confident going on and moving in with the story. It's so good how well they put this together because no matter what you do, you're not doing the wrong thing.
Yep. Doing everything is recommended.
Yeah. And the other big thing for me was just the unforgiving side of the localization.
Mm.
All they did to this game was just shorten the names.
Yep.
They didn't change hardly anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the actual Japanese story. It's not an American story. It's a Japanese fable.
Yep.
You're getting actual god names that they look
from the real folklore. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the unforgivingness of it, I'm not sure if we could have that today again and people be as receptive.
Yep.
But I mean, like, doing that got it this cult classic feel, and that's really cool.
Yep. Well, much like you said, I kind of agree. I think this kind of transcends being a clone or, just inspired by Ocarina or Wind Waker. it definitely has similarities to those games. Absolutely, I cannot deny that. And maybe if I played more, I'd be like, wow, this really is just exactly like Wind Waker or Ocarina. I might see that more if we played a bunch more. But I think that Celestial Brush really adds a lot. I think
it changes the game 100%.
Yeah, such a creative gameplay element that I think that kind of helps it stand apart. It's like Wind Waker, you're on the boat the whole time. Okay, Okami, no boats found, my friend. No, 0 boats. You use the brush in this one. I'd like to see Link use a brush. He wishes, man. But no, I do really think the mix of using the Celestial Brush having such a unique gameplay element, as well as that mix of like real life, like you mentioned, Japanese folklore, straight from mythology, real Japanese mythology, makes it kind of its own unique thing, right?
Yeah, and with the Celestial Brush, that makes me think of like in Japanese, traditional writing, traditional calligraphy. There's this thing for like drawing like symbols and stuff with these big brushes and ink, and like, man, I it just makes me think of that and like how centered this was more towards Japan than anywhere else, but yet how loved it is still.
Yeah.
I did want to touch on one last thing before we move on.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go
Can
for
I
it.
guess? You're going to talk about Okami Den?
I'm going to talk a little bit about Okami Den. So, I mean, like, in the short time we played the game together, we had tons of fun. We found Easter eggs, we were doing all this other stuff, and then it got me...
Let's recreate us playing it. Okay, you do the effects for the game.
Woof, woof, woof.
And then me playing, I'm like, yippee! This was so much fun! I'm a doggy!
And then you hear... And that's your little bug guy talking to you.
So, yeah, we should talk about that quick. They sound like Banjo-Kazooie characters. I know I mentioned it earlier, but, like, them talking, they're like...
It gives this, like, nice little touch to it because, like, there's no voice acting in it. And, like, you get to kind of make up, like, how these characters sound in your head based off of, like, the sounds that they make.
Yeah.
But, like, we had all this fun, and it made me think, growing up, I love this game and everything. But I was like, why haven't we had an Okami 2? Like, even now, we've had all these remasters. Why hasn't someone gone, let's dig it up and get it?
It's because Clover Studios, they don't exist anymore. They're too busy making Bayonetta 3.
That is true. But technically, there is a spiritual successor to Okami. It's called Okami Den. And the game takes place...
For the Nintendo DS.
Yeah, for Nintendo DS. It takes place 9 months after the ending of the original game. But it's focusing on the children that we're seeing in the main game. So, once again, we have Katsuya, the Konohana spirit, tries to resummon Amaterasu because, for whatever reason, demons have returned to Nippon.
You're like, I'm going to bring back Shiranui. No Shiranui. Now it's Amaterasu. Then you're like, I'm going to bring back Amaterasu. But then, who do you get?
We get to see Chibi Terasu, who is Amaterasu's son.
And his name is Chibi. Isn't that amazing?
I love that. For context of those that don't know what chibi means in the Japanese language, it means like it's a cutesy version of something. It's a miniaturized version.
And it literally, if you look at the cover of Okami Den, all the characters are literally, they're like chibi. It's like,
they're cute little characters.
It looks
now.
like Amaterasu just with like a big head.
Okami Den is definitely a game that we'll look into further in a future episode. I know that we're both very interested in playing it. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, watch this space.
Exactly. Watch this space for Okami Den gameplay. So let's talk about fun facts, of which there are many. We did write many fun facts down. Let's start with some easy ones. You can have 30 save files.
Yeah, which is crazy.
That's like a lot,
for the
right?
PS2 version. 30 save files is giant.
Yeah, and they literally mentioned at one point in the game, they're like, maybe you should have multiple save files in case you miss something and need to go back. Of which the only thing I know of is if you want to, so there's like an enemy bestiary. There's one enemy in a part of the game that is missable. So if you want to fully complete your bestiary and you miss it, you literally just have to like start the whole thing over to get that one enemy,
which is funny because imagine you beat the game, you're like, I never saw it.
Yeah,
it's like
one enemy in one
20 hours, before you finish. You
Yeah.
have to go back and replay all that.
Some of these things aren't fun facts; they're just normal facts about the game. There's 13 brush powers. So when we're talking about the all brushes, speaker, and stuff, you gotta collect all 13. And some of those are just like upgraded versions of the previous thing.
Once again, this is a honestly game made towards Japan. I don't think we would see a game that had 13 anything unless they were trying to be like spooky for like America.
Yep.
The fun fact that I love the most is that we talk about the Celestial Brush a lot. We're like, oh, it's so cool.
Mystical
powers, reminds us of like actual Japanese artwork stuff. That brush in the game, when you think about how does a dog hold a brush? Well, the dog doesn't hold a brush. The brush is Amaterasu's tail.
I do like
which
that.
is so great.
Yep. You can upgrade, we mentioned this as well, you can upgrade Ami's powers with the Demon Fangs. And then there are shop items that exclusively you need Demon Fangs for, which is like if you want full completion, you have to buy every item, every weapon, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of a whole thing.
Another nice kind of like, what do they call it?
A nice quality of life.
Quality of life, thank you.
Yeah.
A nice quality of life is the fact that when you do your save games, it tells you how much time you've been playing. And for like the PS2 era, that's like never seen half the time.
I mean, sometimes, but yeah, for sure it is nice to have that little reminder. You can press circle just in the game to bark. You can just run around and bark.
You can be a total jerk and just non-stop bark.
Bark at everyone, bother every single person you see. I do really like this. You can mash X in the loading screen to make paw prints. Kind of like a fun little tidbit.
Yeah, so like there's a couple different loading screens that we've seen. There's one where you mash X to like make paw prints all over the screen. Mm-hmm. And there's another one that there's paw prints walking across the bottom. I think that's for like changing zones.
Yep.
But if you mash X there, you make bigger paw prints. And at the end, instead of a big paw print like normal, you get a demon fang, which I thought was really cool.
Yep. Which is cool. I wanted to mention this quick just because it reminded me of that. There's some games especially the Dragon Ball ones, Dragon Ball Z, you would have like little mini games in the like loading screens, but that was trademarked. I don't remember. It must have been Bandai Namco or something like that.
Yeah.
A company trademarked that, so wouldn't it be cool to have all these little loading screen mini games? But it was only in a handful of games because it got copyrighted. Let's see. I did know this. There's tons of extras unlocked by beating the game based on 4 categories. I don't remember all 4, but I know 3 of the big ones. So it's how many times you died, how many enemies you killed, and then as well as demon fangs collected. It might be time, maybe.
I think
not
time
sure.
was probably the other one.
But yeah, so essentially, if you get the highest ranking, which is like a sakura tree blossoming, each category, if you get a sakura tree, you unlock a ton of new player models, so you can make Amy look like the statue from the beginning, or you can make Amy look like a bigger wolf or like a different kind of dog. But then you can also unlock concept art, a music library to listen to songs, and you can even unlock early alpha footage of Okami, because Okami was going to be like photorealistic.
It was going to be a photorealistic game, and I know by 100%ing the game in the HD remasters at least. Mm-hmm. You can make Okami look like a photorealistic wolf.
That was in the PS2. That was in the old version.
Oh, it is also in the original then.
Yeah, if you got all those like sakura trees, like highest rank in each of these things, you can play as like a photorealistic, fuzzy little Amaterasu. But yeah, if you care about cool stuff, beat the game with high marks, beat many enemies, get demon fangs, and get all that cool fun stuff.
Let's talk about our favorite section, favorites and least favorites.
Why don't you start?
So, I feel like I say this almost every time we play a game so far, is the fact that I grew up playing this game. I love this game so much. It's hard to say, what definitively is my favorite part.
So you hate it, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I absolutely
I don't know what to like about it, so I hate the whole thing.
If I had to pick one single part, I would say my favorite thing is the beauty of the game.
I'm ruining your whole spiel, sorry.
It's the whole beauty of the game, and the fact that like I've said it so much throughout this already. You want to sit back and look at how pretty it is. And it's something that I've just never gone over. Like, even when we were replaying this, I was like, man, look at the mountains in the distance. That's so cool looking. You are playing in a painting, and that's just the coolest thing to me. What about you? What's your favorite
Well,
thing?
you kind of stole my bit a little bit here, but no, I agree. I mean, a couple things, but I mean, the main thing is the art style. The music is just freaking magnificent. At every turn, the music is amazing. The art style is amazing. Even if there's like clipping or graphical glitches, you notice it way less just because of the way everything's cell shaded. So it, sometimes it just kind of all blends in. And I mentioned this, I can think kind of a little bit in our Burnout, but sometimes you're going so fast they kind of blur stuff out to kind of like hide the bad textures. You're going so fast that if things are looking blurry, it's almost kind of on purpose. So you see a little bit of that here where it's like the cell, maybe if we made this photorealistic, it probably wouldn't look perfect. But because of this like, inked paintbrush style, cell shaded, it looks beautiful. It looks amazing. If it just looked like a bunch of polygons of this like weird shaped dog walking around, you might that would pull away from it. But having this beautiful art style it adds on to things, not just pulls away. And
I think that's not to interrupt you there, but I think that's kind of the great thing about this game is that we're both kind of like, I can't tell you what my favorite part is.
It looks pretty.
It looks pretty.
Beyond that, there's too much to talk about.
We're in so much awe. We're just like, look at the pretty pictures.
Yep. No, but the other part I do really love is the creative gameplay elements and hidden puzzles. So, I mean, the game does not tell you. So when you unlock, like I mentioned about the dead trees and putting a circle in them to like regrow them, they don't tell you, maybe you should grow all the trees in this area and something will happen. They don't tell you that. It's just if you see, I wonder if I can regrow these dead trees. If you do that, you're rewarded. If you explore and solve these little hidden puzzles they have, you are rewarded for that, which I think is amazing. I didn't mention a little bit, but I should have put this in the fun facts. There are stray beads in the game, like rosary beads. There's 100 in the game. There's a ton. They're all unlocked through like platforming or creative little puzzles and stuff. But if you get 100, and you have to beat the final boss to get the last one. But so if you get all 100 and go to New Game Plus, you unlock a weapon that it does tons of damage and makes you just straight up invincible. Like you literally just can't take damage. But you have to find all 100 little hidden things, which is like such an amazing touch. I love that.
Just talking about that, there are a couple of games that I've played now in my life where I've gone, I could just replay this over and over again, and Okami is definitely one of those for me. And being able to unlock something like that where I can just run through it over and over again, what a great way to like really be like, if you love this game, here you go, you now can just play forever.
Can somebody mod Ghost of Tsushima but make Amaterasu the player model? That's what I want. But no, so let's talk about why we think it deserves backlog status. I really think that just Okami's a true standout success of the PS2 era. It's a creative breakthrough with an amazing art style, with easy to learn and difficult to master gameplay. Sometimes those paintbrush techniques, you don't do them right, it doesn't do anything. It can be a little finicky sometimes. But overall, the game is really not super hard. I mean, it's rated T for teen. This is not Dark Souls. It's the combat's pretty straightforward, mash square, mash X, do combos, use the paintbrush. It's all, they lay it out pretty straightforward for you. But yeah, overall, I think this game will be really good and easy for beginners. But it will stick with you. I think the one thing we both saw in a lot of our research is that everywhere you go when people are talking about Okami, you're going to find at least a handful of people who are saying, man, Okami is my favorite game of all time. I think this game is beautiful. It's very story-driven, amazing characters. Honestly, the experience really sticks with people, and I think it is just a very well-loved classic at this point.
Yeah, I mean, even for people that aren't like, it's my favorite game, it's like one of the top 10 games that they will say, like, I played Okami, it's not my favorite game, but man, solid number 8, solid number 5.
Yeah, it was a fun game, absolutely. Yeah, the amount of Okami haters was pretty low. If you're an Okami hater, please shoot us an email. I'd love to hear from the Okami haters.
We need to know why you hate it. Is
Yeah,
it just the Zelda clone that you're mad about still?
I want to know why you hate Okami so I can debate you live on the podcast. Just kidding. I would not debate you live on the podcast. I would talk about Goblin Commander info.
Oh.
If anybody's got any Goblin Commander info, please send that our
Get that
way.
handwritten letter.
I did also want to mention before we wrap up here that this game, we talk about whether a game makes you feel like Spider-Man or not. I'll be honest, this game did not make me feel like Spider-Man. This game made me feel like a dog with sometimes a sword, sometimes a shield.
I would venture as far as to say that this game made me feel like a sun god.
I would agree with that. Well, hey, spell sun god backwards.
Dognus? Dognus.
Yeah, there you go. So that's something to really chew on.
Is that like dogma, but more nuss?
I will not elaborate on what dogness means. But it's something to think about when you're playing Okami. Think when every time they're like sun god, just be thinking dogness because it all makes sense at the end. But I think that's going to be it for Okami and for us here today on the Quick Save podcast. As always, we're going to drop links below. I know we're going to have the links to the Summoning Salts page if you want to learn more about how to do speed runs. I've got some of that Okami speedrun stuff linked below. Information for you to do your own research, come to your own conclusion about Okami. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
Are you going to start a Okami speedrun?
Are you going to start Okami speedruns? Are you going to become an Okami hater? Is there Goblin Commander info hidden within the depths of the dark web? All that info and more in the links below. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for us here at Quick Save. I'm Josh.
I'm Alex.
Good night.
We didn't say least favorites.
Do-diddle-do-diddle-diddle-diddle-do. It's fine. We like Okami. Okay. We don't have to say our least favorites.
Okay.
Least favorites about Okami. There's a dog in it.
There's a dog.